Hey guys, Shiloh and Hannah here, bringing you this week's episode of Flippin' Bucks titled High Country Heartbreak from the mountains of south central New Mexico. We're on a self-guided trip chasing big bull elk. We can't wait to share this experience with you.
This is my first time with an elk tag in my pocket. I grew up hunting and I never really had the desire to elk hunt until I met Shiloh, and he was headed out west on an elk hunt and invited me along to film for him. Action-packed couple days in the mountains, and he ended up tagging a 345-inch bull, and it was an experience that I'll never forget. Following that, I decided that I'd like to give it a go, and the next year I ended up with a tag, and we packed up and headed west, and you'll soon experience what we experienced. We arrived in New Mexico and got to the beginning of the trailhead, where we got all of our gear together, which consisted of everything we would need for the next 10 days. From there, we started our hike in. About 3 miles later, we stopped along a stream where we would call home for the next 10 days. As we set up camp, bulls were screaming on the ridge above us. Once we got everything set up, it was late in the evening, so we decided to call it a night, and we knew right where we were headed first thing in the morning. 3:30 comes early in these mountains, but I don't think I slept at all anyway. We got up, grabbed a quick bite to eat, threw our gear on, and started our climb up the mountain. At first, things seemed pretty quiet, but it wasn't long before we knew we were right where we were supposed to be.
Got up on top of the mountain, started working the top of the canyon, and there were literally bulls just screaming everywhere. Never seen anything like it before in my life. It was just bull after bull after bull, as you'll hear on the video. Truly blessed to be able to experience something like this. I don't know if I ever will again. Just truly an amazing experience. We called a lot of bulls. Nothing would commit to us. A lot of them had cows, but we're excited for day 2.
Well, here we are on day 2. We don't even make it to the top of the mountain, and we're already into elk. It's still getting light, and we have a bull screaming right in front of us. Unfortunately, he moved off with some cows before it was light enough for me to shoot. The second bull we got into that morning was a small 5x5. I made the decision to pass on this young bull since it was still early in the hunt, and the amount of bulls we were hearing made that decision easy. 15 minutes later, we started calling again, and the same 5x5 came back in on a string within 5 yards of us. It was a rush just getting to watch him that close. Our luck continued that morning when this small 6x6 walked within yards of us an hour or so after our encounter with the 5x5. We were truly blessed to see all of these bulls at such close distances, and it's only the second morning. We then heard another bull up over the ridge and decided to cut the distance before we tried to call to him. We got set up, hit the call, and he closed the distance to literally 5 yards. This time, it was a bull I could not pass. I thought I put a perfect shot on this bull. When he come out from behind the trees, he was literally 5 yards from me, and I was full draw and put my pin right behind the shoulder where I knew it should be and shot. The bull ran down probably 80 yards from us and stood for what I would say was about 10 minutes. And I'm waiting for him to fall over, and he never did. So he slowly walked out of sight, and I decided to try to sneak down to where maybe I could see him, hopefully get another arrow in him. And he just kind of made his way down over the mountain slowly, and that was the last we saw of him, and just decided to kind of back out and give him, a little while.
We waited 3 or 4 hours, gave him plenty of time, decided to start looking. We ended up finding about 4 inches of the arrow with the fletchings on it, but we never did find one drop of blood on the ground. We did our best trying to track him using just his hoof prints, but it was getting late, so we decided to go back down to camp. We marked everything on the GPS, decided to start in the next morning. The next morning, we hiked back up the mountain, looked for him all that day. Ended up becoming a body search at that point because we had little to go on. Got dark that night. We spent the 3rd day looking for him. We almost spent 3 full days looking for this bull, and unfortunately it just didn't pan out. When you see the arrow hit the bull, it looks like a good shot, but for whatever reason it just didn't seem to be a fatal shot on this elk. So we went back to camp and regrouped and decided we were going to hit it again in the morning.
Yeah, and as an avid bow hunter, I think that maybe this is something that all bow hunters have experienced, but it's something that you hate to see, and it's it weighs on you emotionally, mentally, and when you're back there in the mountains, this is something that can really drain you. And I feel that the shot was perfect. I don't know that I would change anything about it, but unfortunately, sometimes that's the way it goes. And, you got to pick up your bow and arrow and keep moving. So.
Shiloh waiting on breakfast and Hannah cooking.
Well, here we are, it's day 6. We're on top of the mountain. Shiloh's doing some calling, and he gets a bull absolutely fired up below us. But it's obvious he has some cows because he will not budge an inch. So Shiloh finally turns to me and says, if you want that bull, you're going to have to go after him. So we made the decision to, chase him down the mountain, and that's what we did. Shiloh stayed behind us probably 75 yards the entire way calling, and we're crawling through thick pines, just trying to keep up with him. Finally, we drop out into an opening on a ledge, and I can see his tines down below us. And I turned to the cameraman and I said, I see him, can you make a quick cow call? He makes a quick cow call, and at this point, we have the bull's attention. He turns and starts coming back towards us, and he steps up on a ledge below us, and talk about an absolute hammer of a bull. And he's in some thick pines. I drew back. He's probably only 20 yards.
Yeah.
Woo! I thought I had a big enough gap to squeeze it in there behind the shoulder, and I let it fly, and unfortunately the loud crack would be my arrow hitting a tree.
It's a good bull.
Yes, it was.
That's because you washed your hair. What do you want to tell your mom?
When we stopped right here, I saw his tines. That's why I told you I see him. But he was trying to go around us to Shiloh. That's why I said, can you cow call? I didn't know if I could squeeze it through there or not. There's another bull that was following us. We went down, we looked around, found the arrow, it was broken, and you could see where I had hit the tree. And at this point, I am absolutely physically, mentally, emotionally drained. When you put in this much time, this much hard work, chasing bulls for 6 days, and unfortunately you don't find one, and then you have a bigger one come in, you hit a tree, it just, talk about heartbreak after heartbreak. But we're going to continue on because that's what we're here to do. So
Well, this hunt's not over. Stay tuned to next week's episode for the conclusion of this hunt.